Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Chocolate Sane, Righteous Force and Paul Hall in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Hello, one and all.
Good morning.
Hello, hello, hello. Any signs of a physical Earth curve edge, formerly known as the geometric horizon?
Not from any airplane flight I've ever taken.
No globeheads giving us renditions of Charles' Flat Earth Maths' absolutely useless attempt to debunk this? No? Moving on. Any signs of axial rotation?
Nah, the Earth-based variety.
Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
It's over there, but we don't know the distance. How would they ever calculate that?
In a multitude of ways. Measuring it, on the other hand, you'd need to be able to see it for a start.
Well, they see something.
Something. What's
Well,
that then?
You can measure its apparent position.
Oh, there you
apparently
go.
worth that.
Paul's on the ball. Oh, right. It's apparent. What does apparent mean?
Actually, Paul's on the plane.
Yeah, Paul's on the plane. Apparently, it means it looks like it's somewhere, but it's not really there. It can appear to be there, but it's not necessarily there. Now, it can appear to be there and be there. So, really, if you don't know exactly where it's at, you don't know if it's there or not.
Right.
But in order to
that.
appear to be there, you would have to see it, right?
We're talking about the Sun.
Oh, okay.
I already used that line. Well, I used the same line, but with different intent. So you just thought we were talking about the geometric horizon. So I was trying to lead somebody to say what Paul said, which was its apparent location. But you've joined in late, or you were in the meeting, or whatever. Hey, Owen.
Hello.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Parent location, parent size. And so how the hell do we know anything about it?
Distance to the Sun? Can I try a new statement? Wouldn't an antecedent of a physical object be proof of proximity? Like approaching it becoming bigger, it being subjective to perspective and all that? Wouldn't you call that? Make that a part of an antecedent for a physical nature?
Well, tangibility is the ability to be able to physically touch it, right?
Right, but like a location, it being an object in a location in a space and not just a light phenomena like a rainbow, that would require that you could approach it, not necessarily even touch it, but if you just approach it, see it become bigger and have other perspective related effects being subjected to your sights of it in your approach, that would kind of, get closer to proving a physical nature.
I see. What you're saying is if you base it on their presupposition that it's impossible to actually get near, or even our own observation that it seems hot, then you're going to naturally extrapolate out that you can't physically go up and touch it. You might still be able to, who knows? But nevertheless, based on that, you're going to sort of take precautions and try and extrapolate out, i.e. see it getting bigger as you get near to it, to make the assumption that it is actually a physical object. Correct?
Yes, it's an important first step to get a clue, as it were, that it might actually be physical.
Now I'm going to want to touch it.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, it's just a step in between. It's not
Fair
there
enough.
yet.
I see where you're going. I can't really disagree with you either. Yeah.
Wait a minute, didn't NASA launch a satellite saying they're going to touch the sun? Didn't NASA do that recently?
I don't know. Let me guess. Is the satellite called Icarus?
Wasn't it the Himawari or something?
The Himawari? No.
No, it's not the Himalaya.
Oh wait, I mix up all the names. I'm terrible. I don't know my satellite names. I'm
It's
the
really,
worst.
really difficult to get these space junk that are in a fake place, actually. Ooh, what was that? My coaster fell off my cup. Difficult to figure out where these things are if they're in a fake place.
I think I found it. Here you go. I'll share it. Hang on just a second. It's real quick to find, or easy to find.
Sure, they put a heck of a shield on the front.
Parker solar probe launches to touch the sun. Not Icarus then.
Yeah,
Parker.
that's it, Parker. Yep.
You should have called it Icarus.
Well, here's the thing, though. Now, what's the temperature of the sun, and what's the temperature of the so-called metals that the satellite is made out of, and what's their melting point? So how would that probe touch the sun?
I know I always do this to you, Paul. A perfectly valid point. Where are they sending this rocket again?
Second law of thermodynamics violation.
Oh, they're not sending it there then, because that place doesn't exist. That was quick, wasn't it? No need to debate what the space penis is doing, or where it's doing it, when the where isn't real. Moving on. Any single viable hypothesis for any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
You would have to do something other than look at it. So, I don't know what they're doing past that.
Did we have any scientific evidence of gravity? I think we did already, did we not?
No.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence of gravity. But as you get older, it's harder to bend down and pick up an object.
That's nothing to do with gravity?
I know that.
You're just making a note of this, are you? Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm just saying as you get older, your body is tiring. They'll call that something, I'm sure.
That's absolutely delightful. Strawberries taste nicest in summer. Just so we all know. We all on the page. Hold on, chocolate. Don't interrupt this. This is important. Are we all on the same page with the strawberries?
What?
We all on the same page with the strawberries?
What's
No,
wrong
absolutely
with
not.
strawberries?
Chocolate is the best. What do you mean?
I got strawberries.
You don't have a strawberry saying out here.
Most vocal the panel's been the whole show.
Are you dead serious about them being more delicious in the summer? Like, I'm really curious.
It was a non sequitur, just to highlight that non sequitur. Oh my god.
That was good.
Oh my god, is this non sequitur? It was supposed to be a joke to highlight the fact that old age and gravity aren't connected, and I'm like, yeah, strawberries taste nice in summer too. Who cares? But now we're into looking at bloody strawberries and discussing how delicious they are. Wonderful.
Yes, they are.
How about
You use a better analogy.
My god.
I was just enjoying strawberries.
You should.
how about
Somebody kill me
premature
now.
sycamore pollination in the north of England?
The pollination, but exactly. At least that sounds connected. I'll just highlight that for my audience. So when someone comes and asks me something that I haven't made a question about, something I haven't made a claim about, right? I will normally ask them the following question, or phrase it thusly. How do you explain premature sycamore pollination in the north of England on a globe? Go. Come on, panel. What's wrong with
It's
you?
caused by the Coriolis effect.
No, that's nothing to do with premature sycamore pollination, Ollie. What's wrong with you?
Can I have a citation for that?
But what's it in relation to? The fact that I tag on the words proves flat earth or disproves the globe on the end of my complete non sequitur, who cares? If you're not making a claim about what premature sycamore pollination does in regards to the nature of our earth, then why do you have to justify it or defend it? That's the point. You don't. If you're not making a claim about it, just, how does QE put this? Do you go up to random strangers on the street and start asking them to justify things? No, of course not. Someone's got to actually make a claim about it first. Anyway.
Well, there are some people out in this modern day that actually do that, and everyone hates them. So.
Yeah, conspiratards. Feel they've got the right to go up to people and tell them what's what. You know, I'm sure there's a fair few out at the moment with the coronavirus that are going out and just telling people on the street randomly how nonsensical whatever they're doing is. Why are you wearing a mask, you idiot? It's all fake, or whatever they claim. You know, the conspiratards will go out and just tell people what's what. And you just, it's like, mind your own bloody business. You know, keep yourself to yourself. Don't necessarily. I mean, I'm not knocking people. There's, Joshua's out there doing it, but he's setting up his little stand, and people go to him. You know, he's not barking in people's faces, but people will also flip him the bird while they're just walking past. But nevertheless, at least he's getting some interaction out of them. But on the whole, people will actually approach him, and that's perfectly acceptable if you ask me. But as for the other way around, going up to people and telling them what's what, it's like, well, what gives you the right to do that? A couple of shout-outs to theflatearthchannel.com. He's one of my Patreons. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. He says, we need to flatten the curved earth. Right on. Pun on the COVID-19, flatten the curve, right? Love it. Flatearthchannel.com. Check it out. Also, GX, thank you very much for the super chat. I prove gravity, microphone fall down, go boom boom. I love the way he spelt it. I prove gravity, microphone go down, go boom boom. That's how he's actually spelt it. I love it. Thank you very much for the super chat, GK. Also, Rob L. Thank you very much indeed. He also just sends me money with a super sticker with a big thumbs up and a fox saying good job. Thank you very much indeed. I think we've got, I think we're on to two more maybe housekeeping questions. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No.
No. Any evidence?
No, not at all. But
they bounced off sonar thingies, and then based on the responses of those sonar rebounds thingies, like spectroscopy, but with the sonars, try to size up what should be down there, and then didn't manage to actually prove there was a molten core at some point. So they tried to remodel it in order to presuppose it another way.
I'm just doing a quick Google search, and I'm not finding anything for seismic thingies. Am I looking up the wrong term?
Seismic scan, I think, falls under that.
Ah, seismic scan, P waves and S waves. I see. Yeah, they get it wrong, don't they? They think they're going to hit rock, and then they hit water. What do you know? Any evidence of the R value?
Bye R.
Yeah, scrambling to find some R.
Last but by no means least, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Gave it away when you say presupposed.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
We're still waiting for that one.
You take two containers.
Wouldn't be an antecedent.
You can prove it. You just take two containers, and then you do something with them, and then you say, see, it's not in a container.
I love it. Shout out to Emma UK, says, thank you for annoying all the Globers in chat. Big smiley face. Really appreciate your support. Subscribe today to Emma UK. She runs a show. Check her out. Thank you very much again.
Oh, Nathan, I could even expand on that.
Expand.
So technically, yeah, spam, it is kind of spam, baller spam. But technically, they could even argue that no, it's not in a container because the Earth is not contained. So technically, there is really no container.
It's
It
just
just
begging the
seems
question.
to be like a container.
It's just begging the question. That's like equivalent to
Yeah, I
going
know.
outside and saying the sky is a vacuum. Just go outside and observe the sky vacuum. That's begging the
Right.
question.
So if you're having something in a cup, then it's technically not in a container because the whole thing is presupposed not to be contained. See, it works.
A cup is a container. What are you talking
What
about? A cup
the
is a
hell?
container.
Say,
Hold on. Hold on. A cup is a container.
Yeah, but it wouldn't really be if the whole Earth was not in a container. It just
we're
seems-
talking about gas pressure, not we're talking about the gas itself.
Well, I have thought about this, and it is odd that you need some sort of containment to have a body of water or any kind of water outside of like spilt on the floor, right?
Yeah, but you can just spill a puddle of water. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a lipped edged container, whereas gas would have to have a container, or whatever the availability of volume that the gas has to fill, it will fill.
Well, come on now. We've
True that.
got ballers are saying that weight contains things. It contains the water in the glass. It contains the atmosphere on the Earth. Come on, folks.
And does
Weight
it?
is a container.
And does it? Does it contain the water in the glass, Paul?
No, entropy's a bitch.
Entropy is indeed a bitch. So you're saying that you leave the water there for a couple of weeks in the glass or the cup, and you come back and it's all gone? How could that be if weight's holding it all down? If we've always got this down force in effect, which way is the gas going after it escapes from the water when it changes phase and goes into a gas? Which way is it going then? Is it going down to underground, right?
It's trying to fill all possible microstates is what it's trying to do.
Yeah, but it's prevented from going down because down is the cup and the water itself, right? So does it go down? Does it go down at all?
Some do, but most go in all directions. So yeah, probably a small percentage go down, but some go all over the place.
But which ones would go down? So I'm talking about, you've got the water, and your phase change is happening right at the top edge of the water. And then initially, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, it has the phase change, it goes up, and then it might hit another gas particle or another oxygen particle or whatever else is in the air and bounce down. But then it might hit another one and bounce back up again. But ultimately, at least initially, it has to go up, right?
Yep, it goes up. Goes up out of the glass. When I leave a bottle or my glass on the cup, it has to rise up above the lip of the glass and leave the glass. So it is going up.
Amazing. But no down, go boom, boom.
Seeing as down as, taken, it pretty much goes in every other direction than down. Like if down is where water is, then and land is, then it's pretty much going in every direction other than that.
Yeah, it can't go down. The only direction it can't go is down. So, one little tiny water particle can defy this down force that's nonsense. That isn't actually a force anyway. It's just the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time, and it isn't actually forcing anything to do anything ever. But when the people come here and argue about 100-year out-of-date rhetoric from Reverend John Michell, CV Boys and Cavendish, then obviously we have to put them in their place and explain that not everything's going down with this force of 9.8 meters per second squared. So yeah, entropy's a bitch. Former number one top globe debunking, you can't really get much better than that. To summarise it concisely, you can't have gas pressure, like we're breathing, without a container. And the heliocentric nonsense world of a sphere in a sky vacuum has no containment. Just high gas pressure floating around or hurling through a vacuum at great speed and not dissipating into the available volume in violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy's a bitch if you're a globehead.
And it's actually funny if you stop to think about it. Just about all chemical processes, there might be an exception, I don't know what it is, require pressure to function because of entropy. If you don't have pressure, no chemical processes can occur because they got to be colliding in contact with each other. The hydrological cycle will not work. The carbon monoxide cycle would not work if there was no pressure to begin with.
You're forgetting about those first rebellious gas particles, the ones that burnt their bra at the Kármán line, decided to violate natural law. They said, no, we will not be governed by natural law. We're going to stop right here at this Kármán line, burn our bras, maybe go back down again. We like this skyrock. And that's
they held hands too.
That's an interesting
They
statement.
have to hold hands too now. They have to keep that bonding going on. They bound together.
Yeah,
So
they're violating all the laws, man. Once you violate one, it's open season, man. Why should we be unbonded? We want to be together. We're going to bond together in violation of what gas does. That's what we're going to do because we're the rebellious gas particles. And this is all true because we have made it up ourselves. We are the authorities when it comes to the rebellious gas particles at the Kármán line. We are the authorities on this. So let there be no mistake. You know, Newton might have had his apple and Einstein might have his bendy space-time. We've got rebellious gas particles in favour of the heliocentric system. And God damn it, they are. They are tenacious, I assure you.
Maybe they were even more tenacious than we think, right? Because before they gathered their big gang, right, and decided to not act like gas and expand into the vacuum, maybe they're the ones that calculated the geometric horizon, because that would be the day before, like, atmosphere, right? So that'd be no atmo day. So there you go.
That's right, Chocolate. On their way up, the sentient, rebellious, tenacious gas particles saw an opportunity when they were first released from the rocks or whatever, and they were working their way up, having a ball before they got to the Kármán line and decided to stop. And they said, hey, what do you know? We're the only gas particles here. It's no atmo day. Might as well measure the geometric horizon now we can see it.
Yeah. Those were the true heroes.
Yeah. I think we should definitely have a remembrance day for the gas particles that have kept us all breathing in violation of natural law. Because without them, we'd all be dead. Because obviously, if it wasn't for those rebellious gas particles, the gas would have just followed natural law and filled the available volume that it had to fill. And there's a lot of space out there for that gas that we're breathing to fill. So thank God for the rebellious gas particles. Hooray. This narrative gets a little bit more expanded out each time, doesn't it?
So when is the Netflix series coming out?
That'll be in a couple of years once we've expanded the narrative out a little bit further. You know, got some character development down. You know, got the hippie gas particle with a peace sign on a face, and
Exactly.
the rocker particle who doesn't like the festivals and doesn't like us being bonded, us being gas particles in my narrative.
So is there a gas college campus at Earth level?
Once I'm done with this narrative, there'll be a whole gas community, right? There'll be sub-gas communities, like little cults of other separative gas particles. They've got their own set of rules that aren't quite in line. Some of them do go out into the sky vacuum, maybe have a little dabble and then come back. I can develop this narrative. There's all sorts of scope for the rebellious gas particle story.
I think you have a few books that you can write. One was The Glancing Blow of, what was that?
That's already been done. I can't take credit for the story of Thea. That's actually part of the narrative,
Thea.
as much as that sounds as farcical.
No, I know, but hear me out. So we got the Thea story of the glancing blow, and we get our core deposited. At the same time, you can come out with a parallel story of the gas particles watching it all happen from their viewpoint and tell the true story.
I see. So the origin story of the rebellious gas particles is Thea smashing into the fledgling Earth at a glancing blow. You know, obviously that then eliminates any unnecessary gas that's already in existence, already defying the second law of thermodynamics before Thea smashes in. So obviously we've got like a blank slate for these first rebellious gas particles to come out when there's none others around. Obviously, we need that part of the story for Chocolate's measuring of the geometric horizon to work, because if we haven't got them without any other, you know, separatist gas particles still lurking, you know, we need to smash them out of oblivion before we have the story of them measuring the geometric horizon on No Atmo Day. So, you know, that needs to definitely be the starting point of the origin story. I think you're right, 10th Man. Thea's the starting point.
You're getting the historical timeline wrong, because there already had to be a rebellion of gas particles before Athea, because there is petrified wood on the moon, remember?
Well,
So
no, that's what creates it. No.
Second time
No,
after Athea.
No, you just don't understand. I've been waiting for ages to say that to my brain. You just don't understand the story of Thea. No, obviously the coalition. Is that right? The coalescing of the debris that was smashed off in the collision at a glancing blow was formed through gravitational accretion, of course, because that bullshit story works in this narrative, and formed the moon. So obviously the moon, according to their bullshit narrative of a sphere Earth in a vacuum with gas pressure, was formed from leftover crap, because obviously we only needed the molten iron core in this little bullshit story. So in doing so, we also have a nice little side narrative about how the moon coalesced. It all got blasted off into space, because this is another different origin story. It's like X-Men, you've got separate origin stories. So we also have a story about the rebellious physical particles of the moon debris that didn't evacuate into space also. You know, they just coalesced around Earth. It was magical. Like a gravitational well, we could have that whole narrative come from quantum leap style stuff that forms a gravitational well for all this debris to form in accretion and then make the moon in the first place. That could be like a prequel after the rebellious gas particles done really well in cinemas.
Oh, that's just going to be a big series, just like the.
Well, just think about that. Those were actually, if you think about it, those rebellious gas particles were rebellious even at the beginning of the accretion disk, because they were saying, we're not going to obey centrifugal forces because we want to coalesce and come together to form planets and stars too. So they actually were very rebellious in the very beginning, actually, if you think about it. And they also try to overcome this heat thing going on too.
Look at that. It's beautiful. It's on screen now for the audience. If it wasn't for Thea, that core wouldn't be there. It'd all be dead by now. It'd be cold and stony. But instead it's bright and warm, keeping us all toasty. Thanks to Thea. Isn't that amazing?
Okay, Nathan, but I'm trying to puzzle some pieces together. So you're saying that the moon was formed by the remnant of Athea?
Yeah. That's
right.
why.
So, well, then it means that Athea must have contained life, because how else would the petrified wood have ended up on the moon? So it was probably a living planet. So was Athea the origin of life on Earth?
Could be. If you want that to be part of the story, you'd have to verify it with them, because I'm not the authority on this story. I'm really sorry. I didn't make this up myself. Someone else made it up themselves.
Nathan?
Yes, Neil?
Sounds a little bit Star Wars Episode 1-y when you say blast them into oblivion and separatist gas particles now.
Yeah, I just wanted to start with a clean slate, you know, and obviously we've already got the backstory of Thea, so we might as well use that to our advantage by, if they're going to be the initial particles, because obviously Chocolate's very right in terms of weaving in the No Atmo Day for seeing the geometric horizon. You've got to weave that in somehow. So you can't have anything left over. So if you smash it all into the middle of next week, and obviously, you know, a rock colliding with a planet can make everything go into space for some reason, but gas law can't. But that aside, we'll just brush over that bit. We need a clean slate, and that'll give it us.
I'm going to somehow try to weave in all the housekeeping questions into this narrative. The rebellious gas particles and the geometric horizon are just the first part. It's coming together.
we should probably go easy on it now. We've, our creative juices have been expressed. You've got to let this develop organically. For this story to make sense, we need people to pick it apart a little bit first and say, no, that wouldn't work with the Sphere Earth narrative. That story doesn't intertwine. So, like when they took over with Star Wars, the new narratives, they're very keen to keep it all with the lore that went before in terms of the movies, but not necessarily with the spin-offs and the comics. So, we've got to make sure that we get it all together in a nice mixing pot, all tasty and smooth.
Yeah, so you release it a little bit at a time, have the critics say what they got to do, go and repackage it.
Exactly. I mean, 10 minutes ago I'd got the whole franchise sold, but now I'm thinking we should step back a bit, let this narrative develop itself, maybe get a screenwriter involved, that sort of thing.
Then the midichlorians are real.
We'll just sell it to Netflix if it's garbage.
Well, I think Arwen's addition might help. So the splinter group came out from somewhere and it deposited the wood.
Splinter group? Look, right. If there's a problem with the old law in heliocentrism, we can have some creative, what's the word? License. That's the one. Yeah, we can massage out any errors that are in the heliocentric bullshit narrative, because this is ours, really. It's a separate, They didn't worry that you couldn't really turn the world backwards if you're Superman. When he turned the world backwards, he did it on screen. People saw it. They were amazed. The suspension of disbelief still works, and it'll still work with our rebellious gas particles. They'll still be partying at the Carmen line. That little detail's just going to be... We'll have the credits over that bit, like the opening credits. So no one really pays attention to that bit anyway.
Yeah, but he did it for love.
The movie will be rated R, says Cleary.
The lack of R.
Rated R.
Good one, Clary.
I love it. Covered the Black Swan on Ballbusters. Hopefully everyone watched. I'll stick it out on this channel tonight at 10 p.m. So, Black Swan is number one best globe debunking there is. And I say it with a smile because last week we covered Coriolis, which is tedious. And Black Swan's a lot more fun to toy with the fundies. And during some of the chats over the weekend, while I was monitoring the premiering streams that I put out over the weekend, the steps of loss that we went through on Friday, you see it happening in the chat. Now, obviously, I've been saying it, but you don't necessarily practice what you preach. In other words, while I'm talking about the 5 steps of loss and, denial being the first one, well, you see people who are having what's the third step? The bargaining stage. That's the debate stage, right? So they're in the chat, they're debating, and then they very quickly regress to anger when they lose their point, and then regress even further to denial. You watch it, and to me, that's my favourite bit of the chat streams. Watching fundies lose their minds and regress in terms of the steps of loss. Because what they should really be doing, as counterintuitive as this sounds, is progressing forward to depression. In other words, to get better, for this pain to go away, fundies, you need to get depressed first. Then you move on to acceptance. Accepting the loss of your religion. But going the other direction, getting angry when you've lost a point, or moving on to spewing rhetoric about how the world's a sphere, denial, isn't going to help you. You need to move forward to depression, as weird as that sounds. You poor sods!
I hear that too. There's even one who actually named himself Geometric Horizon is Real.
Yeah,
I found to be adorable.
Yes, denial 101, right? Just state it as your screen name when you leave your chat comments. It's real, I tell you, it's real.
When you were describing that, my mind went to when I was a child. I used to watch these movies, and I can't remember what movie it was, but it's like this older guy walks up to a kid who's sad and he's crying and he's lost his puppy or he's lost something. And then when you were telling the story, I was just envisioning you walking up to a globe dart saying, "Oh, you lost your R. How sad. Let me help you."
Shout out to Rakia Life. He says, I think you should rotate your movie from channel to channel, orbiting around the entire Earth. The movie, you've got to cut down on the movie ideas. Just let the creative juices come naturally, Rakia. Don't force it. But thank you for the super chat.
I see the narrative is gaining traction.
We should talk about John Dee's work over the weekend that you released, Nathan. That was actually pretty good work. He actually broke it down pretty well. Went through all the different aspects of it.
Yeah, especially liked, here's the evidence in favour of the horizon being in front of the buoy. None of them are in front. It's not one of them. You're like, even when it even remotely comes close to it, you can still see the bottom of the buoy with the horizon behind it in every single instance. You're like, you've tried to present it in such a way that someone could say, well, on this day you've got this, or at this hour you've got that, like they do with BLM SB69's images. Well, look, here he's gone back and you've got the horizon still in a black swan situation. Not that they say that, they just don't realise it till they bring it here. Anyway, he's presented as much as he can so people can take a chunk out of it if they choose and try and debunk it. But for the fact that he's asking you, even when you could push it to the limits of claiming that it's looking a bit more globy that particular way, it's still behind the buoy in every single example. So it's like, what are you going to do? You can't claim there's a physical geometric sphere edge anymore. It's been debunked. That's what he's presented. He's presented a whole string of black swan images on different days with all the data. It's a spectroscopy PhD. Obviously, he's going to gather as much physical data that he can get and declare that it's not nowhere near as high enough a standard to make any conclusions other than the horizons behind the buoy. Therefore, it's not geometric. So he's not trying to make any particular assertions beyond the statement that is claimed to be true from their side, i.e. he states the modus tollens and then moves on to demonstrating it to be incorrect. We do not live on a sphere. The black swan has debunked your radius value. It's game over. And having a PhD in spectroscopy, I was almost saying it, spectrocoloscopy, expert going through it is just wonderful. So yeah, check out that video. It says it's PhD in spectroscopy versus the black swan. And check out his channel. It's Dr. John Dee's one of the ballbusters. He's a good guy. He's done a lot of work on it. And he's put out every bit of data that he collected. Whole string, maybe a dozen videos with all the data they collected, and then an hour long, maybe a lot, 35 minute long rather, presentation where he compiles all the data, lays it out for and against the globe, very impartial, despite the fact that none of the imagery that he presents in terms of his black swans that he's presenting could anyway be used other than to affirm that we're not living on a sphere with a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. You could draw a tangent point to and extrapolate out globe proofs. We can't. We've debunked that. So, yeah, all hail Black Swan. Excellent work, Dr. John Dee. Hats off to you.
Well, the ball isn't demanding for his degree.
Go on, Paul.
Oh, I'm just saying, just a real quick question. I don't know how to say, I can't say the spectroscopy, and I want to say spectroscopist, because that's what he is. He's a kind of a scientist or a studier of it or doer of it. Don't you have to understand light to do spectroscopy?
Yeah, that's specifically what it is.
So refraction and how light moves and travels through mediums, that has to be understood. So, yeah. So we got a doctor that's explaining all this with us for us. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, but you don't need any of that if you're going to apply a fundamentalist religious assertion that we have a R-based sphere edge for a horizon. You can do that without any refraction. They just utilise something called terrestrial refraction, which also utilises the R value giving you a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. So their terrestrial refraction is a geometric value based on R that they'll manipulate depending on whatever conditions best suit their model. But it still depends on R, 7/6R in standard form. Therefore, you'd need R and its geometric horizon, which we've debunked with the Black Swan. So it's still game over. Them asserting refraction doesn't help them when their refraction's based on R, and you'd need a geometric horizon for that.
No,
One of
but
my favorite parts of the
find it
video is
interesting.
when he actually broke down refraction and the effects it would have. Like, you know, and the only way to work, as they're saying it would work, you'd have to be a denser medium from the point of observation to the point of the observer, or the point of what you're observing to the point of observation, which means the medium would have to be constantly slightly changing to do that. And it also has to work reverse as well, which means it has to go the other way, and then how refraction, what it causes. I thought that was one of the best parts of the video when I saw that, because what little I've understood about refraction, I started thinking about the stuff he was describing. I didn't know how to describe it. He did a really good job.
Yeah, he certainly knows his stuff. Nicely presented as well. He's appreciative of the fact that he's not the best at doing the voiceover, so he just hands it off to Karen, and Karen, to her credit, has done a really good job. She's gone through it. She's obviously learnt the script, read it through a few times, then voiced it, and it sounds professional, looks professional, it's well researched, it's well cited. You can't really get any better than that as far as I'm concerned. It's got black swans in it. What more do you want? It's ace.
I'm going to tell you what they want. They want John D to show his degrees.
Why? Who cares?
That's what I say.
Means nothing in compared to the evidence presented. Attack the evidence. They can't, so they'll attack his accreditation. I love it. It makes no difference. He didn't have to present the fact that he's got a PhD. He has. I've seen it. But he doesn't have to present that to present this evidence. He's not utilising his education other than to offer credibility and say he knows what he's doing, which he does. But even if he hadn't got that, it wouldn't make any difference to the evidence presented. That's what needs attacking, fundies, not him and his accreditation. No, that matters not to his evidence.
Agreed.
Look, the situation we have is they're past life support. They're on their last breath. They have a mathematical, arbitrary model, fictitious. When we ask them to prove it, they've fallen apart. They need a physical location. They can't find the physical location. So they'll ad hom everyone who comes at them now because they're on their last breath. They can't prove their model in reality, but they cling on to their model.
To be fair to people with PhDs, they do. I don't know why, I don't ask, but several people. Won't drop any names, obviously. We're already going to assume that we're talking about Dr. John D, and we are in this instance. But he just sent me his PhD. He was like, "There you go, there's my PhD," and his justification, and it was the same with other people who've done the same. Was loads of people say he's not a PhD. You go, there you go, there's my PhD. So several other people have done the same. People who do claim in the chat that they've got whatever doctorate or whatever they claim they've got in terms of qualifications, I don't care, and I said the same to the people who've sent me them. It's like, your evidence and what that's what I'll weigh it on. Obviously if they're making up an accreditation that they don't have, that's a different story, and I think that again partially would be why they'd want to say no, I'm not making up my my endless education that I spent a lot of money on. Here you go, this is my proof. But it shouldn't matter to anybody what anybody's education level is. I'm not saying that to decry people with a doctorate. If I shake their hand and they introduce themselves as doctor, I'll absolutely respect the work that they've done towards that in every single instance. Why wouldn't you? But by the same token, you then go on what they actually say to you and the worthiness of their evidence and the standards that they present to you when they're giving you their evidence is what you or anybody else should go on, not purely on whether or not they've got an accreditation that you trust in, because that isn't the standard. It's useful to know that you can immediately say, well, I should at least give this a glance because it's come from a credible source, whereas some people might just brush stuff under the rug if it's come from me because I'm just a YouTuber. So from that point of view, yeah, you might give the information a look quicker or at all because it's come from somebody accredited. On the other hand, if you don't like the information and you've got nothing to debunk it, you'll attack the accreditation because you haven't seen it personally, like this man needs to justify that to every sod that comes across this video. He doesn't. Anyway.
Screw it. Don't give him anything. Let him squirm.
I thought this was made clear a couple of weeks ago when QE talked about when you cite a citation or a reference of any kind, if it's not true, it's worthless. So the truth is the key, whether you have a PhD and you're speaking the truth, or if you don't have a PhD and you're speaking the truth. It's only as valid as your argument could be tested under fire.
Precisely. Just do a quick shout out to Al Jungi, who says, Globe lost their R, so that with a capital R, proof becomes poof. Indeedy do. Thanks for the super chat, Al Junkie. Yeah, we'll have to have a few moments silence for the R value one day. Great loss.
It was never there. How can you lose something that was never there?
The hours we spent having somebody tell us the whole body of science, Nathan, proves R, and here we are so much time later, and there's no R to be had. It's a sad day. Go get a Kleenex.
Indeed. I'm sure I've made this analogy before in terms of the standards when it comes to evidence. You've just summarised this nicely, 10th man, but if the person presenting the evidence is giving it from behind a jail cell wall or via a telephone system or internet connection from a prison, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference in terms of what they actually present as evidence. You go over what they present as evidence rather than immediately vilify the person and say, this person's evil, therefore let's ignore their evidence. Doesn't matter. Likewise, somebody who comes along with a PhD presents some evidence. You don't immediately go, well, this must be right then. You look at the evidence and you go on the standards of whether or not the evidence holds true. Not the evidence has been presented by this individual with this credit, therefore this must be true. Or this has been presented by somebody who's a bad person, therefore it can't be true. You know, that isn't the standard. It just does not work like that.
Me and my wife were talking about something this morning regarding some other issues I'm not going to bring up here, but, like, why do you go get a second opinion for a doctor? Like, if a doctor gives you a diagnosis, why do you get a second opinion? Why is that?
Because isn't it all speculative anyway? Like, they're going off of what you told them in a general knowledge, but
Well, ultimately it comes down to simply not everyone has all the information. But whoever has the best information and it can show it and back it, that's who you go with. But, you can ask one doctor one thing about this, like a pediatrician, you can go ask the pediatrician the same question to three different pediatricians, and three different pediatricians, if you give them all the same diagnosis or the same symptoms, they might give you three different diagnoses, And I remember when I took anatomy class in college, we had to they give us the symptoms and we had to try to figure out what disease it was. And so, and it's like realize how hard it is to try to determine what something is, a disease is. And so just because someone has accreditation doesn't mean they have all the information. You know what I mean? And so if that holds true there, it also holds true, like Nathan was saying, then you cannot have any accreditation and still be right. And even have more information than a doctor's if you've done the research. If you've done the work and you bring it to the doctor and say, look, this is what I found, and these are the scientific or whatever studies or whatever they want to use, you can actually, in that sense, have more information than the doctor who spent 10 years becoming a doctor, because you have the information and you maybe spent a few weeks doing the work, so.
Yeah, go watch a movie called Lorenzo's Oil, based on a true story, where one man challenges the doctors based on their assessment of a dying child who he essentially saves with his tenacity and research, over and above the heads of the doctors. And in it, the parents who challenge him say, you shouldn't challenge the doctors, that's extremely arrogant. And he goes through the etymology of the word arrogant and explains that it basically means to take ownership for oneself.
Yeah, actually, I was telling my wife we need to watch that movie again. Go ahead.
No, Paul, can you put up? I put a slide in Master B, and a reference to boot. Tell me when it's up. I want to ask you. This is on so many points so good.
It's probably too late to say by now, but good morning, guys. Long time no speak.
You're really quiet, Elijah.
Good morning.
Is it just me, or is he really quiet?
What's up, Eli?
Sorry, just talking low and away from my mic. My bad.
No worries.
All right, is it up?
Yes.
Okay. This is interesting on the Earth's radius effective. This is one of the articles I found. In telecommunication, radio horizon is the locus with an L, locus of points at which direct rays from an antenna are tangential to the surface of the Earth. If the Earth were a perfect sphere and there were no atmospheric anomalies, the radio horizon would be a circle. To compute the radius of the circle drawn on the Earth in such a case, use the formula. Do you see the formula? Radio horizon equals 1.23 square root of the antenna height. It's vaguely familiar, isn't it?
Yes.
This is the straight line of sight horizon where antenna height is in feet and the radio horizon is in miles. The equivalent formula for an antenna height in meters and radio horizon in kilometers would be, again, very familiar, exactly the same.
Yeah.
So
Go on.
I remember your story of the person in Europe who was aiming an antenna on the hill, and they told it was a lady, and they told her to aim it at this direction to a repeater antenna rather than directly to the site, which was what, over 100 miles away?
Yeah, this was in Italy where they make Ferraris, in Ferrari. And this is Robin Poe. It's Flat Earth UK. I think it's interview number 6. And it's with Robin Poe. And she was in the military, exactly as described by 10th Man, setting up these relays. And she couldn't get a good connection from one relay to the next, whatever, 30 kilometres, say. I'm just making that figure up. But she decided, of her own volition, to just point it back at the source, which was 119 miles away. And lo and behold, it got a miles better reception from the source than it did from the relay. But obviously, she set it up, called in and said, I've got it working. And they're like, how have you got it working? She explained. They're like, take it down. We don't like it. The highly ranking officers came down, had a word with her superiors, who came to her and said, take it down, we don't like it. And she said, why? And they said, we just don't like it. Take it down. It's not by the book. It wasn't by the book. The book was do it with the relays. So she took it down. But she didn't give any further thought until 2014 or whatever I interviewed her, forget, maybe 2015, there or thereabouts when she came to the subject, same sort of time as me. And it suddenly dawned on her that wouldn't be possible on a sphere Earth. You'd have a sphere Earth horizon in the way. You'd have an obstruction. Massive wall of Earth between you and the target. So that was her story. So check it out, Robin Poe.
On screen, which will tell you exactly what's going on, and it even ends with extending the horizon.
What are you babbling about?
Read the last paragraph on screen in the 10th Man, and notice the bit at the end where it says increases the radio horizon. You're an utter moron.
Radio horizon? Which horizon would that be?
Read the last paragraph of the text on screen, and it describes the bending of the radio signals around the Earth's surface and extending the radio horizon.
Oh, I see. My bad. You didn't read begging the question part at the end, 10th Man, where they just tell you that it's going to be bent around the presupposed sphere Earth. At whatever rate they tell you, it's going to bend around that presupposed sphere Earth. You missed out the begging the question fallacy, 10th Man. What's wrong with you?
In the last paragraph,
thank you, Rumpus, for misunderstanding the reason I brought up the article.
Read the last paragraph.
Excuse me. What is the observer height again?
Why don't you know that? That's obvious. What stupid question?
Oh, no. That's you bid on it. Thank you for biting on it. I love fishing.
Well, we know what the observer height is. It determines what the horizon is. Yes, we know this. So what's the question?
Okay, so where is it at a 1 foot observer height on Miramar Beach?
for a straight line, no refraction, no atmosphere condition, then they observe a height. What is I think on that one, which video? Well, I don't know which video you're referring to. If you're referring to Black Swan, it's about 5 feet high, and then that would give you
1 foot.
about. No, it wasn't. It was 5 foot.
No,
that will give you that will give you approximately
No,
the
Rumpus. That's
1.23.
1 foot. Sorry.
No,
it
one
was 5
foot. We gave
any
you 5 feet
basic.
and
It's 5 foot. It's 5 foot. And
No,
so, just like
no,
this last
no,
paragraph in your
no,
text here describes, the bending of the
don't
light,
rumpus
the
me.
bending of the
Don't
radio waves
rumpus me.
extends the horizon, just like
don't
the
rumpus
Black
me.
Swan.
Don't rumpus me, Rumpus. Don't rumpus me, Rumpus. If you would pay attention to the carefully articulated argument that QE put out, it's at a 1 foot high.
It ignores refraction.
There you go, Rumpus. Why are you?
How
muting
stupid is it? It ignores
Why
refraction.
are you
How
muting
stupid
Why
is it?
are you not listening?
We don't
to the
live in a
question? What are
vacuum,
you
do we?
afraid of?
We don't. We
What-
don't live in a vacuum,
is it
do we,
that-
10th man, you
what
idiots?
are-
We
what
don't
are you afraid
live
of?
in a vacuum.
That's right, we
What
don't live in
are
a
you-
vacuum. I know it's claimed that Earth is situated in a 10 to the minus 17 Tor vacuum, but that's definitely not the case. Thank you for confirming that, Rumpus. No, we don't live in a vacuum. If we did, the gas we're breathing would fill that vacuum. Thank you for confirmation that the sky is definitely not a vacuum. Earth is definitely not in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum. That's right. The space is fake. Thanks for that, Rumpus.
Sky's a vacuum.
You just spent the last... How many... Did you not just scream at me that we don't live in a vacuum? How do my balls taste again? Sorry, how do my nuts taste? You've just spent, what, 30 seconds screaming that we don't live in a vacuum, Rumpus?
On ground level, yeah, of course you don't.
Sorry, at ground level, Earth is supposed to be in a vacuum, and we don't live in a vacuum because the gas we're breathing would fill it. It's called the second law of thermodynamics, entropy law. I know you confuse these things and think they're separate because you're a moron, but the entropy law would dictate that the gas we're breathing would fill the space, Rumpus. We don't live in a vacuum, you're absolutely right.
Don't
What does the
understand.
entropy law?
Don't understand? What? That we don't live in a vacuum, like you've just screamed at us? Yeah, I understand. We don't live in a vacuum, because if we did, the gas would fill it. That's called entropy. The gas would fill all available volume that it has to fill. So yeah, you're right. Your first assertion was spot on, Rumpus. Well done. We don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum.
Allow me a sentence to explain it to you.
What? You just told us, you screamed at us, we don't live in a vacuum. Now you want to, what, double speak your way around your concession that we don't live in a vacuum by telling us how we do live in a vacuum? No, Rumpus. No. We don't live in a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. The gas we're breathing would fill the space if we did. And you were absolutely correct in your assertion that you thought was necessary to scream at us that we don't live in a vacuum.
Are you frightened of me answering you? Right.
You answering me? I'm not making a statement that needs answering. I'm repeating what you told us. You told us, quote, we don't live in a vacuum. I'm repeating what you said. I'm not asking any questions. How dumb are you? I'm repeating what you said, moron. I'm not asking you anything. It's just what you said debunks your claim that we do live in a vacuum because you screamed at us that we don't.
You're frightened of what I say to you. Here we go.
No, I'm not frightened. I'm repeating it. You think I'm scared that you've told us at the top of your lungs that we don't live in a vacuum, and you've made 10th man understand that implicitly, that we don't live in a vacuum? That's what we say, Rumpus. The sky is not a vacuum. You're agreeing with us, and now you're claiming that I'm scared. What, scared to listen to you and repeat back verbatim what you've told us? Not in the slightest. I'm elated to be listening to your dumb idiocy, because according to your religion, we do live in a vacuum. We do, according to your religion that we've debunked with the second law of thermodynamics, natural law that applies always, the entropy law. You think they're two separate things. You're a moron. You're also content to scream at us that we don't live in a vacuum, and you're right. And now you're interrupting me because I'm repeating back to you the fact that we don't live in a vacuum as stated by you, and you don't like that.
Let me have one sentence.
No, I'm going to kick you out because all you've done while I've repeated back to you and made my point is say, let me have a sentence. So now you're going to get removed. You're not prepared to listen. You're prepared to say, let me have a sentence 50,000 times so the Discord server can't hear. Now, I'm not prepared to deal with that, Rumpus. No. I'm repeating back to you what you've said. It destroys your religion of a globe. Now, I appreciate that while I'm doing that, you want to say, let me have a sentence 60 times, because me repeating back what you've screamed at the beginning of me repeating it demolishes the assertion that we live in a vacuum. Quote the Rumpus, this show. We do not live in a vacuum. Am I wrong? Panel, did he not say that?
He did.
I heard it.
Oh, right. So why the hell should I listen to him and his diatribe telling me I'm not allowed to repeat the fact that his assertion that he yelled down his microphone at us demolishes his heliocentric belief in a sky vacuum because according to his religion, we do live in a vacuum. Now, we don't live in a vacuum, the gas would fill the space. There's no way on God's green earth that Rumpus is going to tolerate me affirming and repeating what he's just said and strapping on the fact that, yeah, we don't live in a vacuum, it violates natural law, but your entire bloody religion's based on us living in a vacuum, and you're going to tell us how we don't live in a vacuum when you're justifying us not seeing the geometric horizon. Because you'd need a vacuum to be in effect if you were looking at that thing that only exists in your model. So you can be damn sure that Rumpus is going to be pissed off that I'm not letting him rumpus the crap out of this. He's going to say, let me have a sentence over and over again. You had your sentence, you said it 4 times. We don't live in a vacuum. Did you hear him okay, 10th man, when he shouted that at you?
He was over talking me, but I did hear something to that effect. I'll have to re-listen to the show, but I'm sure
He
Chocolate
said
and
the
Arvin
sky
got
is
it.
not the atmosphere.
The sky is not the atmosphere. Yeah, according to their fundy religious belief, the sky is a vacuum.
It's pretty funny because they need the vacuum to have space be real, but they can't have the vacuum because they need a geometric horizon, which we don't see because we have an atmosphere.
Precisely. And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream for smashing the super chat, hopefully commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!